I want to welcome you all to the third annual National Fun Fly. I hope you guys have had a great weekend, a great couple days of flying. There's still one more day to come, so if you're able to, please stay and enjoy that. Also, this is our annual membership meeting that is a part of our bylaws requirements that we meet with the membership and bring them up to speed and take questions and figure out how things are going within the AMA. In the post-COVID era and with gas prices, I know we're all facing very, very significant challenges in our daily lives. So I appreciate the fact that you guys were able to make it to this event. Even some of our district vice presidents struggled to get here today, but we have most of them here to talk to you. And we have some really good opportunity. And I'm especially pleased that we're going to be able to recognize some people today for not only special achievements, but for their participation in this great hobby of ours. I think what I'll start off with is one of the top awards in our hobby. You know, when people ask about, you know, what's the highest award within the AMA, we typically think of the AMA Fellowship Award, or we have a newly instituted Lifetime Achievement Award that came into being about 3 years ago. And those really are the top awards that are within the award categories within the AMA. But there's also another, what I would call category or element that really is outside the award program. There's a freestanding program of its own, and that's our Hall of Fame program. The Hall of Fame program actually started in 1969 by a council of past presidents that felt it was time and appropriate to recognize people that have spent a lifetime contributing to this hobby and making what it is today. And today, with the induction class of 2021, we have 357 inductees into the Model Aviation Hall of Fame. And we're able to recognize one of the significant individuals here today. I met Bob Root for the first time today as one of our inductees, but I've read through his nomination paperwork, and well, I tell you what, he has really made a mark in this hobby. You know, he's been a member since 1949. He holds the enviable AMA, you can't even really call it a number because it's what we call a vanity number of grandpa. So that's what he's known within the AMA community. He's been significantly participated in his local club, the Ventura Comets out in California, and has started his modeling adventures back as a youth in Portland, Oregon. He went to Oregon State, where he achieved a BS in mechanical engineering. And those days, there was no such thing as an aeronautical engineering degree, but he specialized in aeronautics. And he went on to work in the industry and did such significant things as work with Northrop Grumman and was on the design team for the B-2 bomber. He was also very heavy into model competition. He competed in the Scale Masters competition. He's a master craftsman. He's also a pylon racer, which is dear to my heart. He competed heavily in the pylon community during the 1970s. And he actually designed a P-39 Airocobra that he kitted and sold something over 300 kits, right? So it's just been an amazing career. At this time, I'd like to ask Bob if he would come up and join me. Bob Root. If you don't mind, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career in the hobby?
Okay. How long do I have? we just took a tour of the museum. Is my on?
Yeah.
Everybody? Okay. And it was fascinating. Well, I should back up. Just coming here is fascinating. The fact that I'm being honored with this is absolutely amazing, and I want to thank everybody that was involved. But going to the museum and seeing things from my youth all the way through till now, it was just, I kept adding things to our tour. I couldn't let the tour guide have all the words. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and the first club I was in as a young man, even before high school, was Portland Stardusters, and it was essentially a free flight club. But I also built a lot of control line models because I could fly them locally at the school nearby. And then I'd go with the adults to fly free flight out in the country. And this was in 1949, 1950, 51, before high school. And I competed in a lot of free flight, not much control line, but free flight because the club was doing that. And we put on a contest every year. I soon found that the awards were like new motors and things. For a kid, that's a big deal. But you didn't want to be serious about half a free flight because there'll be 50 entrants. But half a payload, I saw payloads in the museum. I'd forgotten all about that one. And then there might be 5, and I got a much better chance of winning a motor. So I went on from that, and the club soon evolved to radio control because there were a couple hams in the club. And by the time I was a junior in high school, so probably about 1953, I built a Lorenz 2-tube receiver from model airplane news plans. And the club members told me where in Portland to buy all the pieces and parts you need to do that. So I started flying rudder only in those early years. And I kind of stuck with that, compound escapements and things. I didn't do much when I was in college because I was working my way through college. But when I got out, then I got back into free flight and rudder only. But by then, everybody was flying Reeds, but I couldn't afford them. So I hung out until the proportional came along. 1968, Cliff Weirick came out with a radio that was $100 cheaper than everybody else. The Kraft was like $495 or $400, and the PCS was $300. And so that was my first proportional radio. I built an RCM trainer, learned how to fly that, and then built an Aeromaster. I saw an Aeromaster in the museum. That brought back memories of the Spokane Internets. 2 years in Spokane, Washington, the clubs put on, I've forgotten the club name. The Spokane guy here could tell me. But anyway, they put on this big contest and got people in from all over, Southern California and so on. I won pattern in 1970 with an Aeromaster. The reason was all the judges were Air Force pilots. They were standing up on their trailer judging us and our maneuvers. And I talked to him afterwards, and he says, well, we know that biplanes are hard to land, so we didn't count your bounces. And I went on, and I won in 72. I think I won a couple of both the pylon, Formula One, Formula Two. We were really into that in Seattle. I was working for Boeing by this time when I got out of school. 3 of us in Seattle started up the Props, Pylon Racers of Puget Sound, and that group is still going. And our purpose when we started it in about 1970 was to get more interest in pylon racing. And we helped the clubs run the races, with all the information they needed. They supplied the manpower. And so all through the early 70s, I raced in Seattle, Portland, and Pacific Northwest, Formula One and FAI. As far as all the things you read about there, I did have a couple of designs. When I went to the NAT, I went to the 72 Nats and the 73 Nats and competed in pylon. And I think the best I did was 5th, maybe in Formula 2, but I had a good time. And the editor of the magazine previous to the AMA magazine, I forgot what it was called, American Modeler or something. He was interested in, each time I showed up with a new airplane, he says, will you do an article? So I did an article with plans and drawing. I could do, from work, I could do the drafting. It was all before computers. I remember one of the things we put in the magazine was retractable landing gear, because I needed landing gear that was thin enough to go in a racing wing for Formula 2, and Goldberg hadn't came out. About the time the article came out, Goldberg finally came out with a retractable landing gear that was thin enough. Okay, so that's in the 70s, and then in late 74, I left Boeing and moved to Southern California, and went to work for Northrop. So after 15 years at Boeing, I went down to work at Northrop, and it was the best move I ever made. Most of my career has been in advanced design and new business. And so I worked on a lot of proposals, and a lot of proposals that were lost, never an airplane. At Boeing, at the 10-year point, when I had a meeting with my supervisor, I said, well, he's giving me a 10-year pin. How long do I have to work before I get to work on an airplane? He says, oh, don't worry about that. You can work your whole career and not work on an airplane. So I decided, at some point after that, I decided to move to Northrop. And the timing was perfect, because I got in advanced design exactly when aerospace started looking seriously at stealth airplanes. That means airplanes that, besides being designed for performance and what it can do, were being designed for how it could be not detected by radars, IR, and any of the detection systems. The first program in 1975, I don't even remember the name of it, but we, Northrop, lost to Lockheed. And Lockheed went on to build 2 prototypes of the F-117 fighter. And I kind of worried, there's another loss, And the thing that really impressed me with Northrop compared to Boeing was when we lost, the vice president of the company threw a party for us because we had actually done very well with it, even though we lost. And because of the technology that Northrop was developing and was showing at that time, DARPA, which I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it puts money into new research and new things that might result in future weapons. DARPA gave us a contract to build something called Tacit Blue. And it was top secret for years, but about the year 2000, they released it, and it's in the Air Force Museum now. So I've been once to see it. We're going to drive there tomorrow. Monday, we'll go to Dayton to see the Tacit Blue again. I hear now from one of the guys I met today, it's in Hangar 4. It was a stealth airplane that had 135 flights, and I was involved in the flight testing, getting first flight. That was really a thing for somebody like me that have always been interested in airplanes. And 135 flights, very successful, one of the most successful research programs the Air Force ever did. They were very happy with us. All that technology went into the B-2 bomber, and I'm sure that's one of the main reasons Northrop won the B-2 bomber contract, because at that time in the 80s, Northrop was not known as a bomber manufacturer at all. Anyway, I did work on the proposal of the B-2, but I didn't actually work on the detailed design of the B-2, because then I went on to another program to competing with Douglas. Northrop was competing with Douglas for the next Navy airplane, the A-6 replacement, because the Navy's A-6s were wearing out badly. And this was in mid-1980s. We worked on that project several years and eventually lost it. So there's another loss for me. But I had my winner, so I was happy. The A-12, I think it was called, that Douglas program went on, and it was a total failure. They spent about 2 years on the contract and had all kinds of problems, and it wasn't going to work. The government decided it wasn't going to work and canceled it. However, Douglas sued the U.S. government for like $1 billion because of they said the government falsely stopped the contract. Well, it turned out they were suing because the contractor, head of the contract didn't do it. It was the defense, the head of the defense, the biggest big gun canceled it. Well, it took several years for that legal thing to go on. And after I retired from Northrop in 1995, I took early retirement because it was offered and financially it was worthwhile. I started working other things. I worked on a friend of mine had a company making baggage handling, so I worked on that because I was a mechanical engineer, even though I hadn't done it for 30 years. And but then I got a job with the Department of Justice on this lawsuit, and that was really neat because I got to go into the records of the Boeing and Northrop and Douglas competing, all the work that was done. They had all the files of it, and see, where they went bad. And I'm biased, of course, but apparently our feeling was Northrop, the Navy wasn't going to give it to Northrop. They wanted Douglas to have it. So that was really fun. And I was working up arguments of why that airplane wasn't going to work the way it was configured. So after I did that, I kind of decided about when I turned 65, my wife and I were in Hawaii, and we were at dinner, and she says, do you ever think about retirement? And I thought, oh man, that sounds good. So I've been retired really from 1965. And it wasn't 1965, when I was 65, 2002. And I joined, after I retired in 1995, we moved to Ventura. We were living in the Valley in Los Angeles. And so in 1995, we moved it to Ventura, and that's when I joined the Ventura Commons. And that's a neat group. And I wrote in an article in the newsletter for about 12, I think, years, Roots Rambling. And you can see how that works. I'm still rambling. And I look back at some of those. There's some really neat writing in those early newsletters. And I finally gave it up. I'm getting too old for that. And a guy by the name of Tom Wolfe, which some people may know, he was really the top scale guy in our area. And he actually lived up in the Santa Barbara area, so he was near. And he kept seeing the models I was building and saying, you ought to compete. So that's how I got into scale, and the Scale Masters was Tom Wolfe's help, and he was my mentor in effect in this, and I just kept going, and he eventually passed away from ALS, and we're very sad about that, but that's where I am now. So I just like to build scale models. I'm not building as much as I used to. I seem to have more repairs now than I used to. And that sort of summarizes it, doesn't it? Did I talk too long? I always talk too long.
Well, thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you and your family. If people haven't had a chance to meet him, his entire family is here. And I want to congratulate you for being inducted into the Mall Aviation Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
All righty. In case I didn't introduce myself, I think most people know who I am, but I'm Rich Hansen, the AMA president, and I'd like to ask Chad, our executive director, to come up and join me. We have another benchmark to celebrate today. On March 3rd of 2022, a legacy within our hobby, Hazel Sig, turned 100 years old, which and the Sig name, as you guys know, is synonymous almost with this hobby. And it's been a mainstay for as long as I've been in the hobby. And for over 50 years, that family has contributed to the greatness of the hobby and the furtherance of the hobby, and even down to individual modelers and how they've been able to achieve. So the AMA Executive Council felt it was right and fitting to recognize today, as our third annual National Fun Fly is also Hazel Sig Appreciation Day. And we have made that proclamation that I would like Chad to read.
Do you mind holding this, Rich, while I read the much smaller one? I'll add, 1988, Hazel Sig was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So, Bob, you are in great company. And if you were to join AMA today, your number, Angie, would be in the millions, correct? Are we that high up? So, to be 300, to be in an elite group like that, Bob, congratulations. And Hazel, if you're watching, congratulations. Let me read your proclamation. Whereas on March 3rd, 2022, Hazel Sig Hester celebrated her 100th birthday. Whereas at 3 months old, Hazel Sig took her first airplane ride where Charles Lindbergh flew her first airplane when she was 17 and went on to become a commercial instructor pilot and flew aerobatics in her blue and white clipped wing Cub. And whereas Hazel Sig first flew and built model airplanes as a young child, and in 1951 began selling pre-cut balsa with her husband, Glenn Pancho Sigfus, at the low cost of 10 cents a sheet, which ultimately became the start of the Sig Manufacturing Company. And whereas the name Sig has become synonymous with eminent model aircraft parts, products, and components, and is now part of the aero modeling lexicon. And whereas for more than half a century, Hazel Sig and the Sig family have enabled, sponsored, and supported the advancement and preservation of model aviation and have furthered the education of scores of young aviation enthusiasts through funding and providing the Glenn Sig Memorial Scholarship Fund. Now, therefore, be it known that the Academy of Model Aeronautic declares this day, Saturday, June 5th, 2022, to be National Hazel Sig Admiration Day, and Hazel Sig Hester is deemed to be a true aeromodeling centenarian.
We had hoped that Hazel would be able to join us today to hear this proclamation firsthand and to share the day with us. At her age, you might understand, and the weather being what it is, her medical team advised her that maybe travel wasn't the best thing for her this weekend. But we wish you were here, Hazel, if you're seeing this video, and I know that you all will take her into your heart for the day. And not lastly, but next, we do have the opportunity to present an FAI award that within the U.S. and within our modeling program is not something we always have the opportunity to present in a formal setting today. But we have the award and we have the recipient, so we thought this would be a good opportunity to present it. And this is a World Cup award in free flight, the F1E category, for competing in 4 or more free flight events and scoring with the highest scores over that period of time. And in this case, Bob Seflet scored third, or ranked third in that ranking, and has achieved the World Cup diploma and medallion. So Bob, if you would come forward, please. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All righty. Now we'll move on to the presentations by the district vice presidents. As I said earlier, not everyone could join us this weekend for various reasons and complications and challenges in this post-COVID era. But we got most of them here. So I'm gonna go ahead and we'll just do our districts in order, and then we'll leave our executive vice president after the districts, and then we'll get on to headquarters staff. So I think the first 1, 2, 3. Okay, you wanted to read his first? Andy Argenio, who's a district VP for District 1. Couldn't make it today, but he did have a report he wanted Chad to read.
So District 1 represents, let me get this correct, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire. New England, think New England. And I just want to pause and pay tribute to Andy and the fact that this is the first time in 18 years he has missed a membership meeting. And so and it's important to note all these executive council members are volunteers. And so Andy, sorry you couldn't make it. He did provide some notes about what's happening in his district. Let me read those. AMA made 2022 the year of the clubs. And so to better engage in discussions with more clubs, officers, and members, and to answer questions and to address issues, District 1 is now hosting district Zoom meetings with posted agenda items and links open to all club members. And they're inviting guest speakers such as Tyler Dobbs and others to talk and engage with the clubs. They've had 4 meetings so far in District 1, and they've exceeded all their expectations. They've had over 50 clubs represented and participating on topic items such as FRIAs, which remote ID, we'll talk about that in a little bit, altitude limit, enforcement, trust, safety risk panels, we'll talk about that in a second, reviews, remote ID modules, AMA program of work, and he has 4 more meetings. So if there's others from District 1 and you want to participate, get with your club, get with Andy Argenio. They have 4 more meetings scheduled September through December. Secondly, he wanted to talk about the FAA provision to allow educational institutes to operate model aircraft or UAS under the guidelines of an organization like AMA. And that's presented a lot of opportunities in District 1 to focus on expanding their educational outreach efforts. The FAA also recently provided $5 million to help facilitate that directly to schools and programs. So District 1 is taking advantage of those opportunities too. And District 1 has AVPs and club volunteer mentors working with those teachers. And you'll hear similar stories in other districts who are interested in conducting classes from middle school to college level. Finally, we had great success in utilizing project-based model aircraft design teams and build as the primary tool for accomplishing STEM educational objectives in several schools this year. He adds, thanks for listening and thanks for attending.
Thank you, Chad. Also, District 2, Eric Williams couldn't make it today, but Andy and Mark and Eric have worked together on these project Zoom calls that have been very, very successful and have really created a lot of interest and interchange between the clubs and the club officers and the AMA officers. So I think and hope it's something that we'll be able to spread through other districts around the country as well. So we'll move on to District 3, Mark Radcliffe.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Radcliffe, and I cover District 3, which is Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And glad to see some representative modelers here from that district. And yay, raise your hand, District 3 people. There we go. Look at that. Good, good. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Like to see a lot more District 3 modelers here. And I'm going to talk this up a lot more at events and try to get more attendance. But we're very pleased with what's going on in District 3. Events did curtail for a while with the COVID, but they're really coming back strong. I was just talking to one of my AVPs, Jeff Black, in the Pennsylvania area today. He went to an event. They had over 30 pilots, and that's good. And we are facing challenges with gasoline prices and so forth, but modelers, it's not the first time in our lives that we've had these challenges. So we're going to work our way through it. Overall, though, we're real happy with things the way they're going in the district. And that's about it. If anybody wants to talk about things, I'll be around and love to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And we'll go ahead and move on to District 4, Jay Marsh.
Nothing like being upstaged by Andy Argenio when he's not even here, okay? Anyhow, in District 4, we're looking forward to having a good season. It's been rather rough for the last couple of years. People are getting back out, starting to fly, and we have some things to celebrate. This club, Brainbusters, it's a free flight club. It's 80 years old. And they're still active. They still have over 40 members. This little piece of paper that I'm holding in my hands is a newsletter that's produced every single month and has done so for over 50 years. The author, the editor of this newspaper, Abram Van Dover, would insist that it sent out in paper. He was not a digital guy, and only lately has relented to allow it to go out digitally. But the club is phenomenal. They got their start in Langley, Langley Base, Langley Field in Virginia, and worked with the government during the war effort, and actually made turbines for wind tunnels. These are wooden bladed turbines, and they were the best that the government had. They would balance within a gram. And we're talking 40-foot span on that. They've done other things, making silhouette models, models that you can hold up in the air, and airmen can identify what that airplane is, because all they see is just a profile. And they were making those for the military as well. So that's where they got their start. And they, like I said, they are very active even today in STEM programs. They're holding Abram Van Dover did pass away a couple of years ago. So they're holding a memorial indoor free flight contest in Johnson City, Tennessee, next weekend. So it should be a great memorial for him and so forth. And we want to really celebrate this 80 years that they've accomplished. I'll just mention the FAA. That'll be addressed down the road. But I wanted to give some recognition to Prince George's Radio Control Club, who is our spokesman for letting the FAA and the government come in and see what we do. And they are relentless. They will do anything that we want to. And it's a very special group, and they're trained, so they know what to say and who to talk to and show what we do. So they have been great at that. So I want to give them some acknowledgement. What we did in District 4 over the last couple years is, well, with no events going on or very few events going on and so forth, we ended up with a budget surplus. And so what we did is 60% of the budget that District 4 got, we returned it to the membership in the form of TAG grants, flying site improvement grants. These would be grants that the funds from AMA we ran out of money. So anyhow, with that, because I did have a budget surplus, we, District 4, went ahead and provided the money for the flying site grants and so forth. We did an e-card program where we gave AMA store e-cards and then gave them out at events and so forth. So hopefully the members got some benefit from that. We hope that this year we will have so many events that we won't have a dime left. But that's what we're trying for. So things are going pretty well. We are inundated. I never told you the states and so forth that District 4 consists of, but it's North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Washington, D.C. So yeah, I'm the lucky guy with Washington, D.C. But I got great support from AMA and the Gov team. And I just can't say enough about them. But anyhow, so I will be around if you have any questions or anything about what we were doing, or want to find out more information about Brain Busters or the indoor free flight contest next weekend. Just see me, and I'll be glad to give you all the information. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Also, David Lindley is in the audience too, president of the National Free Flight Society. Can give you a little more background on that as well. 80 years as a charter club is pretty phenomenal when you consider AMA is 86 years old. So if that's not the oldest club in the academy, it's got to be one of the oldest clubs. So let's move on to District 5, Andrew Griffith.
Jay used all my time, sorry. No. I'll keep this brief. First off, congratulations on the AMA Hall of Fame, because I found that most people that truly deserve such an honor are the ones that are surprised to get it. So congratulations. I also want to call out the staff. They work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and quite honestly, us being here for the weekend is a pain in the rear for them. So thank you for all the hard work that they do to make this happen, the fly-in, the meeting, everything we do up here, which is really their weekend. So that's really all I got. Florida, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Tennessee, and Kentucky. So, and I'm out of Jacksonville, Florida. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Unfortunately, District 6, Gary Himes, and District 7. Are you going to speak for Gary? Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll stand corrected. Gary Himes couldn't make it, but he sent one of his associate vice presidents, Leo Rodriguez.
Thank you, guys. District 6 represents Kentucky, Indiana. How many Indiana people for District 6? Okay. Missouri and Illinois. All right. I just want to say thank you for letting me help out on the flight line. I had a lot of fun. There's a lot of activity in Indiana, a lot of big names in Indiana also, and I'm not so familiar with some of the other ones. I served under Mr. Brown, the late Bob Brown, under Mark Radcliffe for District 3 when I moved from Pennsylvania to Indiana. I served under Randy Cameron, and now I'm serving under Gary Himes. So got a pretty good history with the AMA. Also was, I guess, an officer for IMAA back in the day. Followed Miles Reed around. If anybody knows Miles Reed, I used to fly with him. I was an Ohio resident, of course, born in Ohio. Model aviation has taken me to big, big steps. I'm an aircraft mechanic, turned into a career, worked for airlines, worked for the helicopter industry, doing install work. Now I work for Whirlpool, a corporate business in Michigan. So also worked for U.S. Steel out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for quite a while. Anyways, just wanted to say hi, represent District 6. If anybody needs any questions, I'll be here for a little bit. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Leo. And as I started to say, Randy Gibson, District 7, unfortunately couldn't make it. He sends his condolences. So we'll move on to District 8. Lawrence Harville.
I'm District 8. That's Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana. I think that's it. Yeah. So we have. I'm new to this. No, I'm not. But we do have some people from District 8, and this is unusual. So stand up back there. Raise your hand back there, guys. Yeah, it is. So thanks for being here. District 8 really has been busy. We really didn't take a lot of time off the last couple of years. We've been having events all 2 years. So, and we're going on right now. We'll say, to make you feel better, when I left home 2 days ago, it was 106. So this is like freezing weather to me. So we do have two clubs that have reached the 60-year level, Fort Worth Thunderbirds and Greater Southwest RC Club. So we've been around a while. So if you have any questions about anything, just let me know. I'm going to be short also. By the way, I am standing up. This is it. So see you later.
Thank you, Lawrence. We're going to go ahead and move on to District 9, Jim Tiller.
I'm the representative from District 9, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, and Wyoming. Heart of America. And we do have at least one person here from North Dakota. So we are represented at the National Fun Fly. Just or more than a couple. I'm sorry. Yeah. So we're glad you're here. Just a couple of things to note from District 9. Just a few days ago, Camp AMA finished, and a young man named Dugan Doyle from the Denver area attended that camp on a scholarship. He is the 9th student from District 9 that's come to Camp AMA in the last 7 years. We sat down together, a couple of us, and decided how we could get kids there. And just through a grassroots effort, we sent our first student 7 years ago, just from the donations of local flyers. We're up to 9 now after 7 years that we've sent to Camp AMA. Dugan ended up getting a AMA Foundation scholarship. So our scholarship fund stayed intact this year, so we can send 2 next year, which will be even better. The other thing, today in Fargo, North Dakota, some of my counter AVPs are up there celebrating with the Fargo Moorhead Skylarks Control Line Club, celebrating their, well, how many years is it? Since 1957, every year since 1957, they've had their competition there, their control line competition. And we sat down, and that's got to be one of the longest running events in AMA. David Lindley pointed out that there might be a couple that are long, more than that, but that's got to be one of the longer running ones. So we did it up right for them and made them some plaques and things to celebrate that event. So thanks for being here.
All right, thank you, Jim. And we're going to move on to our newest District Vice President for District 10, Greg Stone.
Thank you. District 10 is California, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and Hawaii. And I'm thrilled to have, a whole family here from District 10. So this is great to be here. And my first, visit here to Muncie. So it's great to have, see you all here and have this honor bestowed. So this is great. Some of the things that we're kicking off really this year, glad to see the attendance at events really get going again. People are ready to get out after kind of being trapped for a couple of years. So a lot going on with the events throughout the district. We are doing what we can to emphasize youth and educational activities. So we did have the return of the SAE's Aero Design Program at the Apollo 11 field this year. So great to see the collegiate programs, kind of come back into being and in-person activities. So we've been supporting that for years. Glad to see, Science Olympiad and that through National Free Flight support. looking to grow and expand on some of those areas. So, we're focusing on clubs, we're focusing on, getting attendance back up at the events, and then everything we can do to support education and youth throughout model aviation. So, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And then last but certainly not least, as far as our district VPs are concerned, Phil Tallman.
Hi, I'm Phil Tallman from District 11. That's Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Idaho, and I think I'm forgetting one, Montana. So everybody from my district, raise your hands. So as far as we're going pretty good. We had our jamboree the first weekend of June. Spring has not sprung yet in Washington, so all the heat wave, you guys have sucked it all away from us. We actually broke the record for the latest day in the year that it first over 70 degrees, and tied the record for the first day in the year over 80 degrees, and that was only 3 days ago. So it has just not gotten there. Now, according to the weather, Monday, we're supposed to hit 90. So maybe we'll have summer without spring. Jamboree went well. We had a little cold, a little rain. Weather wasn't that wonderful, but we had a pretty good turnout. We had at least 40 registered pilots. And then on Saturday, quite a few people there for a single day thing. So it went very well. My event coordinator says a lot of events are up. Some of the events that haven't gone on for a couple of years have renewed. So there's going to be a lot of events there. And I think we'll have quite a bit of activity. We have a good scale contingency in District 11 and have a group that really promotes that. I helped their chief judge put on a judges training program using Zoom technology. And if you'd have told me 3 years ago that I could have got 33 old men in a Zoom meeting and kept them there from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd have told you there's no way. But it was a great training session, lots of questions and answers and conversation. So we've learned a lot about new tools, and we're going to use those more too. The club that you may have talked about, we have a club in Spokane named the Barons, and they are well over 50 years. They've been going, and they're still going strong. So that is one of my home clubs. So I think that's it. I'll end now, and thank you much for letting me be here.
All right. Well, I've got one more officer to introduce to you. It's our executive vice president. He's number 2 in the pecking order, but number 1 in my heart. I truly mean that, because as executive vice president, he serves with me as part of the leadership team, and he takes a lot of work off of my shoulders, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I'd like to thank a bunch of people, if I can, for helping me with this event. My wife and my grandson that ran the simulator trailer all this weekend. Leo ran the flight line along with Jim Tiller, and without him, things like this couldn't have happened. And there's a lot of the staff that helped as well, and I really appreciate it. We started this event 3 years ago. We've always been over 100, actually. Oh, no, not the first year we were 80. Then last year we were 127. And this year I think I had 94, the last count, pilots here, which is a pretty good number, especially with the economy the way it's going. And I'm really proud of the event. The reason we started the event was we had lost the expos. You know, we had Expo East and Expo West both for a little bit, and we kind of stopped doing those because we were losing money on them. And then it left out to where we didn't have venues to have this national or our annual membership meeting. And we needed that. And I felt that we have the Nats and a lot of people come and compete, but this is geared more towards the common modeler. And I think they deserve a spot on the field for a few days as well here at Muncie. And I like to bring them here and let them see the museum. A lot of people take that opportunity to do that as well. And I just really appreciate everybody that's been here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. And Randy has really put his heart and soul into this event. So if you get a chance to thank him for all the hard work he's been doing, please do so. At this point, I want to go ahead and turn it over to the staff and let you know what's going on at AMA headquarters. So I'll ask Chad Boudreau, our executive director, to come up.
We'll keep it short. I know we're all hungry and we've been here for about an hour already. So let me just highlight a few things that we're tackling as an organization. I'll quickly explain my role, and then I'd like to bring Tyler up to talk a little bit about Gov as well and answer any questions. Then let's go eat. My name's Chad. I'm the executive director. What does that mean? This council here, they set the vision and the tone for the organization, and they look to me and our great team of staff to implement that vision. And I want to highlight a few staffers here. Of course, Tyler will talk in a second. We have Matt Ruddick and Dylan, who are in our marketing and creative team. We have Aaron Dobbs in the back, who helps in marketing as well, and in terms of partnerships and sales. We have Angie Martin. She heads up our membership division. So we have some great people here. If you have any questions, reach out to any one of them. Of course, anyone out here as well. Some initiatives for 2022. We have a program of work, and we outlined some projects we wanted to get to the finish line. And I'll just highlight a few that you'll be seeing here within the next few weeks. One is we're changing how we communicate. You receive a lot of newsletters and e-newsletters. We're changing all that to a project called AMA This Week. So instead of AMA Today, instead of Roto Report, instead of Media Minute, and all these e-newsletters, we're going to be more strategic. I know sometimes you just get bombarded with emails. So every week you'll get emails called AMA This Week. And the unique thing is it'll include some dynamic content. So Bob, your email may be slightly different than the other Bob's email, Bob Seifley. So it will have a lot of great content. Check that out. Digital cards, you'll still continue to get your AMA card in the mail. But now you have the option to pull it up on your phone or on the computer and print it in case you go to the flying field or the National Fun Fly and, oh, gee, I forgot my card. Let me pull it up on my phone and here's my card. We're doing a lot of great stuff with clubs. Club charter renewal will be online by the end of the year. We're improving club search. We want to get more people to clubs and to easily find flying sites. So lots of great stuff that's happening in our program of work. And I'll add that we're already thinking next year. What do we want to do next year? So if you have ideas, get with these individuals and share those ideas. Let me share briefly, when we think of AMA, we might think of the museum. You might think of headquarters or the flying field or Model Aviation Magazine or insurance. And those are all great things, but those are tools for AMA. That's not AMA. AMA, the heart of AMA is our membership, and it's our mission and our vision. And when you read things within our mission and vision statement, you see statements like advancing education and scientific, the pursuit of scientific endeavors. And I encourage you to, if you rub these tables, you might feel some bumps and some lumps. That's dried up CA. And how we're implementing that is just last week, we had Camp AMA in this room where we had students building and tinkering and creating model aircraft. A few weeks before that, or a month before that or so, we had virtual camp for younger kids where kids from all across the country can learn how to fly. This week, we had a charter school, and these tables were used again for youth. And we want to empower clubs to do that too. We want to empower our special interest groups to do that. We want to get people inspiring the next generation of aviators, engineers, scientists. And if you have ideas on how to do that, get with these individuals so we can get it in the program of work. And I'll add one more thing too. When you read our vision and mission statement, there's some powerful words in there. One is to make a commitment to make this the foremost sport and hobby in the world. And that's a big statement, the foremost hobby in the world. And sometimes it doesn't always feel like that. And it seems, gee, we're battling Gov, and we're battling the economy, and we're battling regulations. And I'm here to tell you, we heard some great stories where the hobby is alive and membership is growing. In 2020, we set some goals and we hit those goals with membership growth. 2021, we outpaced 2020. In 2022, we're already on pace to outpace 2021. So we're growing. The hobby is alive. And Tyler's going to come up and talk about some initiatives that is happening in Gov, where we're seeing a lot of victories on that front. So Tyler, let me turn the floor over to you, and then we'll do some quick Q&A, and then let's go eat. One more thing as Tyler comes up, I do want to add, as it relates to Hazel Sig, because Hazel couldn't be here, I know a lot of you had great stories you wanted to tell Hazel. The media team, Matt and Dylan, will be right outside this store, and we would love to capture those testimonies in front of a camera. So please, in between grabbing bites of Subway, sneak out there, share your story with Hazel. We'll edit that down and we'll send that to her so we can let her know that we appreciate everything she's done. Tyler?
Hello all, my name's Tyler Dobbs and I lead up AMA's government affairs team here. It's been a busy year as always, and it's only going to get busier as we move forward. We have FAA reauthorization that will take place sometime in 2023. And what that is really the best opportunity for us to get new changes to the legislation or the rules that we have to follow. So that takes place next year, and that's really what we're working towards. What we have been working on over the past year are really safety risk management panels for our clubs and our flying sites around the country. What this does is it gives the process that allows you to get a higher altitude in controlled airspace than what you're currently allowed to fly. So the FAA and air traffic control facilities at a local level set altitude restrictions around their airport that range from 0 feet to 400 feet, depending on where you are. And we have a process now in place with the FAA where we have been successful in getting clubs up to 2,000 feet in those locations. So been very successful. I know that Phil mentioned the Barons Club. That was a panel we did not too long ago, and that was just the model club. They did an excellent job. The responses they gave the FAA, we actually used as a template for future clubs. So really appreciate the Barons' work on that. Those SRM panels will continue likely into the future. If a new club moves or if a new club is formed and they want to get a higher altitude than what they're currently permitted, then they'll sign up with AMA and we'll work them through the process. We're also working and waiting on the FAA's advisory circular, 9157 Charlie. I know I've been mentioning that in emails and webinars and AMA airs for some time now. It's held up in FAA legal, but what that document will do will allow organizations like AMA to be officially recognized by the FAA as a community-based organization. Gives us a seat at the table. It lets us work with the FAA on updating changes to rules. So it's an important thing. It will allow us to move forward and one more step in the implementing of the rules that passed back in 2018. It will also allow night flying to resume in controlled airspace. Night flying is currently permitted in uncontrolled airspace, areas like AMA and areas away from busy towered airports. But in controlled airspace, there's been a restriction on that for the past few years. That will be reinstated once the advisory circular is published from the FAA. We have just resumed trips to DC a few months ago. Those trips had been Zoom, just like the rest of the world with COVID. Back in April was our first face-to-face congressional meetings, which was nice change of pace to get back on Capitol Hill and be face-to-face with congressmen and women and senators and their staffers. That's really important. We need to continue sharing AMA's message, educating those that are new to Capitol Hill, and working towards reducing some of the burdens that we saw put on our community back in 2018. So that's really our focus. President Biden recently released his administration's asks for a domestic counter UAS policy. So we've been trying to get ahead of that. It's not, Congress isn't working on it right now, but the president has a plan on what he would like to see. As we know, more than most hobbies, we usually get wrapped up in whatever that policy could be. So we want to make sure that whatever this counter UAS policy is we don't want our clubs that are flying near airports or near critical infrastructures, near prisons, things like that, to be impacted by whatever this technology, whatever this new plan that they put in place to restrict the bad actors in the airspace. We understand that those things are needed, but what we don't want to do is have more of a negative impact on the good actors in the airspace, like AMA. As I mentioned, we are working towards FAA reauthorization, which means a lot of congressional meetings, a lot of education through the staffers really that work on legislation. That will take place at the earliest in October of 2023. Things have changed a lot. I started doing this job back in 2016, and I know I went with Chad and Rich dozens of times, and we would try to educate, and we would share our message and our wants and our asks, and we would often go to the same offices over and over, and they would continue to ask what our asks were, what our wants were. We have gotten to the point now, we've been so many times and we have so many allies in all of aviation that now those offices are coming to AMA and saying, hey, we're getting ready to work on legislation. What are your asks? What are your wants? So it's not so much us going to them now, they're coming to us, which is a nice change of pace. Jay mentioned Prince George Club, which they are great. We work with them all the time. It's to the point now I call Rick Moreland, who's part of that club, and it's crickets on the other end, and then I hear him sigh, and he says, what the hell do you want, Tyler? And I tell him, I say, I'm going to give you the free opportunity to give you on-the-job training to work with government agencies and officials, and he just kind of chuckles and laughs, and but I can't repeat what he says after that, but he gets the job done, and that club is great. They know how to handle themselves. It was 2 months ago, I think, that we invited a team from the FAA to join that club. They were there all day. I think they got there at 7 or 7:30 in the morning. They left late in the afternoon. We flew everything from little park foamies to turbine jets. And they were collecting some data, really just learning the hobby, getting the experience. We need to continue to do that because the FAA now, we are under their regulatory authority. And unfortunately, there's a large percentage of that agency that have never seen a model aircraft in the air. They don't know what model aircraft do. They see what the news shows them. They see what YouTube videos show. And obviously, that's not the case all the time. So that's something that we've really been focused on is when we work with the group from the FAA, DOT, and others, we say, okay, well, the first thing we would like to do is get you at a flying site so you can see what we actually are all about. And that's been, I think, probably one of the biggest changes that we've done, and something that's really brought about the most change and been able to educate those groups. Lastly, remote ID. I'll finish there. I know everybody's probably ready to eat, but remote ID obviously the final rule was published some time back. Those dates are inching closer and closer to us. The FRIA, FAA recognized identification area, which will be the process that will allow you to apply your flying site to be exempt from remote ID. The FAA said that process will be in place in September. Will it? I don't know. If I had to go off of history, probably not. The FAA doesn't always meet their deadlines or their timelines. So I would expect that to probably be the case. I know that we've been working with a number of groups that are working on that FRIA process, but it's getting close. We're just a few months away, and I haven't heard any noise from the agency saying that they're getting close to being ready. So AMA headquarters is ready. So as soon as the FAA rolls out that process, that procedure, and says, okay, your clubs, your flying sites can start requesting FRIA status, we are ready to reach out to the clubs and walk you through that entire process, assist you however we can. For those that fly maybe in their backyards or away from an AMA site, the requirement to have a broadcast module on your aircraft, that takes place in September of 2023. So you have some time for that. All of the requirements to comply with remote ID do not take place. We're over a year out, September of 2023. So I'll end it there. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. You can ask here. Feel free to catch me after. I'll be around. So, yeah.
So each club will have to
petition the FAA for their flying site?
So AMA headquarters would like to do what we did with the letters of agreement process. There was a portion in 2018 rule that required clubs in controlled airspace have a letter of agreement with air traffic control. AMA headquarters just took the lead and said, here are all the clubs that need letters of agreement. We've supplied all the contact information, did all the laid work, all the paperwork to make that happen. We want that to be the same way through this remote ID process. It likely will, but we don't know exactly what the FAA is thinking. So we will do as much of the legwork as we can at the headquarters level. We'll obviously need to communicate with someone from the club just to make sure that the operating area that we chart of your flying site, not just the ground, but the airspace that you use is correct. And so we'll need you to sign off and just verify that, hey, here's your flying site. Here's where we think you fly. Is this correct? Yes or no? And then we can make adjustments as needed. You're welcome.
These remote IDs that they're going to require us to have presumably someday in the future. What's the cost of that?
We don't really know yet. I know in the final rule, the FAA said they had prototypes that were a little larger than a stamp, and they expected the cost to be $50. Obviously, there's going to be different capabilities on different types of modules. AMA and the technology team, Andy Argenio and Tony Stillman and a few others, have been meeting with developers for these remote IDs. And there are some that are basic and only meet the requirement of what the FAA outlined in the final rule. Gives the location, the FAA registration number, and so forth. There are other developers who say, well, we're going to have a phone app and we can track, if you want, you can pay, we can track every flight you do, we can track the maintenance on your aircraft. So it's going to be just like anything else. The basic cost will likely be relatively low. And when I say low, I'll throw out a number and don't hold me to it, but maybe $50 to $150. And then there may be one out there that's a few hundred that has a lot more functionality and, a nicer interface when you log on to an app. So I think it's a little early to tell how much the cost is going to be. The FAA says $50. That was pre what we've seen inflation wise. So you might raise that up a little bit. So they will. So the remote ID module will have a serial number. When you went to register through the FAA, you got on the drone zone and it gave you your registration number. You'll take that serial number from the broadcast module or a new plane that you buy that it's built in, and you'll add that serial number to your drone zone account. So it will link it to your FAA registration number. So when someone opens their phone and reads that registration reads your remote ID, they'll get your registration number, and that's what will be identifiable to the aircraft and the person. Did I see another question back here?
And that database is only law enforcement, right?
Law enforcement and the FAA, that's correct. Right here?
I just want to thank you guys for staying on top of this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's our job, but no, we appreciate hearing that. Thank you. Well, we appreciate hearing that, but that's our job, and this is our passion, and we want to remove the burdens for everyone, for ourselves, just as much as everyone else. So it's never ending. I mean, this is never ending. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in. We're always going to have new things pop up. We have been able to fight back half a dozen or more bills that look to restrict UAS or UAS parts made in China and foreign countries. Obviously, that poses a huge problem for us. If we can't use federal dollars or fly on federally owned or managed lands, if any part of your model aircraft has a part that's made in another country, specifically China, that's an issue. That affects our STEM, our educational program, Civil Air Patrol, JROTC, all of our clubs on Army Corps property, and all of EPA Superfund sites. So that's a never-ending battle in itself, is trying to push those things back. And this is the world we live in now, but we will stay on top of it. Thanks.
All righty, I think we're wrapping things up. Just one comment, I did that government relations work from 08 to 016 before I moved up to president. And I couldn't have asked for a better team to take it over. They have just done a phenomenal job. And I am so proud of the work they're doing. And I'm proud of all of you for staying the course and realizing what this hobby is and what it means to us, what it's going to mean to future generations. With that, it's time to eat, and thank you again for coming.
Hey, can I say something today, please? I want to thank everybody for coming up, treasurer from the Greenville, Ohio Club, and that's from Mansell yesterday. I had to get Rick.